So just follow along with me. You'll get the overall idea, guys. I'll show you very shortly. So this is about this code deploy. And for the hands-on activity, we'll be taking ahead with the on-premise option because that's an easier one. So we'll take it up with the on-premise option. It's an optional, and even if you launch it, it will cost $0.02 per instance update. So it's not, I hope it's not too much. Anyways, it's like from the examination perspective, you need to know how it works. Next, I'll open the documentation and I'll keep it aside. We'll go through it once we understand about the code pipeline as well. So if I click on this code pipeline and select this get started page, here, this code pipeline helps us to visualize and automate the various stages of the software release process. So when I take up any software release process, it's not a straightforward, isn't it? I'll have to get the code from one scenarios from one repository. I'll have to perform the testing. I might have to do the version installation. I might have to do some necessary basic tests, load test, multiple tests will be involved. And then finally, I should be deploying these applications. So this code pipeline helps us to visualize and automate the various stages of the software release process. So automation is a key thing when it comes to AWS examination and even DevOps in general, because the overall concept of DevOps runs around automating the task so that the companies can benefit from the speed delivery. Now, coming to this AWS pipeline, it's a continuous integration, continuous delivery service for fast and reliable application and infrastructure updates. So code pipeline build, tests, and deploys the code every time there is a change and based on the release process models we define. So coming to the pricing, so each active pipeline is $1 per month, but all pipelines are free for first 30 days. So this is about AWS code pipeline. And if I just come down and I'll open the documentation. Now, from the perspective of the examination, so let me help you by understanding some of the important topics from the user guide. So this is a user guide for code deploy. So here in this code deploy, some of the key topics that you need to consider is how you can get started with AWS CLI. So I'll show you in a visual way, but it's very important that you understand and you set up the services. The setting up the IAM roles and permission is what you need to understand. And there are some tutorials that have been given to you. You can refer to this on the basis of your requirement. And as part of a learning journey, we are going to deploy an application to an on-premise instance. So if I come further down, the other topics that I want you to focus. So how to work with deployment configuration. This is an important topic, and how you can working with application. This is another unit which is very important from the examination perspective. And obviously at the end, so the monitoring and the security plays an important role. So these two are what I would recommend you to pay close attention as you start preparing for your examination perspective. And coming to the code pipeline, so the the link for the official documentation is this. So here, like even when it comes to code pipeline, you have to ensure that you have all the necessary permissions to perform the required action. So that will be taken care by the IAM. And there are some tutorials that is available to you to help you get started, how you can install the code deploy agent and everything, and the code pipeline. So you can check out over here. So any topic that you're seeing right here, guys, always think from automation perspective. So right now I'll be showing you an automation, and in the same way, all the topics that you'll be learning, think from the automation perspective as how it can be automated and how it can be configured, how can we get the alerts. Okay, so that's how you need to think when it comes to the preparation of this AWS DevOps examination. Now let's go ahead and do this activity of AWS learning journey. So I can see Belly has raised a hand. Can you please let me know the query, Billy? Please post your question in the questions tab. All right. So team, if anyone has any questions, please use the question and answers tab that is present in the Zoom. You can use the same, and you can ask any of the queries that you might have. So let's go ahead and do this, guys. So right now we are going to create and deploy our application using the code deploy and code commit. Now in this journey, so I'm going to launch an EC2 instance, and we'll perform an SSH to the EC2 instance. We'll install the AWS CLI and code deploy agent. Now, once that is done, we can go ahead and we are going to specify where exactly our application is, and we are going to proceed ahead and perform the activity. So let me show you in a hands-on manner. I'll just get started and I'll show it to you guys. So here in this scenario, so I'm logging in again. I think it got logged out for me. I've logged in again. Perfect. So the first thing that we have to do right now is, we have to launch an EC2 instance. So we will have to launch the EC2 instance. EC2 instance is what we will be doing because we'll be deploying our code in EC2, that is AWS EC2. In order to launch this, I'll click on this EC2. Now here in this EC2, so you can select the region, whichever it is nearest to. For me, I've selected US East 1. So here to launch the instance, I'll click on the instances. Now to launch a new instance, I can say launch instances. Now this is a new window where you can initialize your EC2 instances, or alternatively, you can also switch back to the old instance as well. Okay, you can switch back to the old instances. So this is a new one which has everything in a single window. If you're not comfortable, you can opt out to old experience and you can get the old way as well. Since it's a new one, since most of you might not be familiar with, I'm using the old one itself. So here we'll have to select the virtual machine. I'm going to say Amazon Linux to EMI. That should be enough for me. I'll select the x86. And once I select this, here we can select the instance type. I'll choose the t2.micro because it is free tier eligible. So I'll choose this t2.micro, and we can access and we can select the IAM role. Now here, whenever you're assigning the IAM role, ensure that this EC2 IAM role has the permission to communicate with AWS S3. The reason because the code is actually present in AWS S3. It should have the necessary permission to get the code from the AWS S3. That means it should have the read access. So in my scenario, I have already created that IAM user. So hence I'm going to just select the IAM role which I've created earlier. Now ensure that you add that role, like you just need to add the permission, just like you have done for AWS code commit. And along with that, you also need to ensure that you have the necessary permission to do the other activities, and you can get the complete information using the AWS code deploy documentation. So I'll click on this add and storage. Now here, so we can select the storage and I'll click on add tags. Now we can add tags. Add tags here is nothing but like we can mention the name. I'm going to say add tag. I'll say name, and I'm going to say it as EC2 instance. This is the name that I'm going to give for my EC2 instance. So I'll click on next button. This will configure the security group, and I'll create a new security group. I'm going to say it's something like this. I'm going to say code deploy security group. I'll mention it like this. So here, currently it has opened the communication. I'll select it to anywhere. And currently SSH communication is open. Along with this SSH, I'll also enable HTTP, and I'll ensure that it is set to anywhere so that Once my application is deployed, we should be able to access it. Okay,